rhythm study that you find on page 34. This is for your percussion rhythm chart number 3. We're combining quarter notes, eighth note rest, and 16th notes. It's pretty straightforward. However, there's a few tricky spots within this that I want to discuss in this clip. The biggest one that I'm seeing is when we have an eighth note, 2 eighth note rest, and an eighth note. If you go down to the 7th line, so count down 7 lines and move over to the last measure of the 7th line, you'll see that exactly what I'm talking about. Eighth note, 2 eighth note rest, eighth note, then we have 4 sixteenths and 2 eighth notes. I'm just gonna break down that measure right there for us, and I'm gonna use some of our old techniques from when we did some eighth note rests. I'm gonna play that measure, but I'm gonna play it 2 times with the rim on the rest, 2 times airing the rest, 2 times without everything. So here we go. 1, 2, and 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and a, here I air it. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and a, now without everything. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1. As you can see, with the sticking, I would have 1 and 2 and. So that means my sticking for this, natural sticking, would be 1 and 2 and. Then we have 3 and a 4 and. Make sure to practice with the metronome. I prefer having that eighth note subdivision within it, so I have an accented downbeat, so like a deep doop deep doop deep doop. So I can feel the downbeat, but I'm also hearing that eighth note. This will help you lock into that eighth note pulse a little better. Also, it will allow you to hear those 2 inner beats or inner subdivisions during those 2 rests. So I'd have a hit, and I'm going to hear the metronome go deep, deep, and then I'm going to hit again on the and. So I have hit, deep, deep, hit, and you'll be able to hear that, and you'll lock into that eighth note subdivision. The only other spot that I see giving anyone any trouble is when we have an eighth note followed by an eighth note rest, and then something else. Our brain sees that and wants to play upbeats. That's just a downbeat. For a drummer, the only time that's really going to affect most things are if we're playing on an instrument that is sustained. If I'm playing a snare drum, I just hit it. I had a thud. It's over with. But if I'm playing, say, like timpani, I would hit that. If I have an eighth note to an eighth note rest, I would hit the timpani and dampen on the eighth note rest. So I'd have 1 and. So make sure that you don't get confused by, again, eighth note to an eighth note rest. Let's look at the 2nd line down, last measure. I have a quarter note, 4 16th notes, then I have that eighth note followed by an eighth note rest. So really the count's going to be 1, 2, 3 and a 4. So don't get confused by eighth note rest. Now when I see this, I don't have to do the rim, but since we're using that technique, let's break it down with that in context. So I'm going to do 2 with rim, 2 with airing, and 2 with nothing. So here we go. 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and 1, air it. 3 and a 4 and 1, 2, 3 and a nothing. 1, 2, 3 and a 4, 1, 2, 3 and a 4. Now by me hitting the rim or airing it, I'm actually training myself for what I was talking about earlier with the timpani. When I see those rhythms, in my head I'm thinking 2 eighth notes. So I'm thinking that as 1, 2, 3 and a 4 and my hand would come down on that dampening of the timpani. So it doesn't hurt in practicing that with the rim if it's giving you some trouble. So again, for the assignment, it's the last 6. So just start from the bottom, count up 6. We're just recording the last 6. Hopefully this helps a little bit with those two things that I feel may give some people some trouble. I hope everyone's staying safe. Miss everyone. Hope you have a great weekend.